Welcome back to the Wealth Actually podcast. I'm Fraser Rice. Today we're joined by Richard Heft. He's the CEO of EXT-Marketing. We're going to talk a little bit about the intersection between financial institutions and marketing. It's a little bit different than just regular marketing of soup or computers or things like that. Financial institutions have their own way of doing things and their own constraints. And Richard's here to help fill us in a little bit about what that's all about. Richard, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Fraser. Really happy to finally be here.
Thank you. So EXT. So tell us a little bit about what it does and forming it and the opportunity you saw.
EXT was short for extension marketing, which we sort of saw ourselves as an extension of our clients' teams, where they may have part of a marketing infrastructure within their houses, whether it was a dealership, RIA, a fund manufacturer, alternative asset manager, hedge fund, venture capital, private equity, any of those types of firms that deal with finances. We felt that there was an opportunity to offer really well-educated, knowledgeable financial communication services, and we're full suite, full service marketing services firm. So we start from we're almost like an in-house CMO or an outsourced CMO or a chief marketing officer. Beneath that is the tactical implementation. How do you get your message out to potential investors, to advisors, to whoever will be selling your products or buying your products or services?
So marketing versus marketing for financial institutions. What do you think about in terms of differences there? The top of mind one I can think of is, if you've got the SEC or other regulators out there, that's a little bit different constraint for people who are, bootstrapping it and kind of running around doing whatever they want to do. How do you think about it, and what's the dissonance there?
Well, again, you could start from sort of the generalist marketing agencies that sell a Pepsi or a Ford accounts. They'll have these big accounts and they'll do full structure marketing and advertising campaigns. We didn't want to be a generalist firm. This is a heavily regulated industry and the products are extremely specific. And every fund manufacturer, a lot of autos, cars would be very similar, whereas every mutual fund manufacturer or dealership is selling different things, is providing different services to clients within a heavily, like you said, heavily regulated industry. And it creates a certain set of challenges and a certain set of opportunities. We talk a bit about the sea of sameness, where you have a lot of different global equity or global small cap funds or mandates. And how do you position these differently? Well, we try to extract that from a portfolio manager, what their key differentiators are, what their value proposition is, what their investment philosophy is. And then we start to position the marketing around that, again, within what the SEC or other regulators will allow, and ultimately come up with key differentiators that help these types of products stand out. And it is very challenging because we're very sector specific. We only work within this industry. We decided at a very early stage that we didn't want to be all things to all people. We wanted to specifically target the financial service sector because it's what we knew, it's who we knew, it's where we felt we could offer the greatest value to the industry or to an industry. And that's what we've done over the past 15 years since our company's inception.
So let's dive into that sea of sameness problem, and then maybe a close cousin of that, the lowest common denominator problem, which I put it as sort of, how do you address the largest number of people, but don't dumb down the message so much that what's so good under the hood doesn't get out to the people. Is there a process you go through in interviewing companies to sort of try to ferret that out, or what do you do to try to differentiate and deepen?
You start at a macro level and do a bit of a competitive analysis. So you see what's out on the street. So again, you could position your products against those. And there's always differentiate. If you're launching the same product after product and just copying something, another product that's in existence, why are you doing it? So, 100% of our clients come to us with these differentiators, with this separate and distinct approach to managing their products. And that really helps us avoid the sea of sameness. We will conduct interviews with a lot of subject matter experts, maybe potential clients or advisors who will be selling these products. and get to the root of what the product is, and then with our competitive analysis can drill down on where do we want to focus this product's branding and marketing, and that it takes a bit of time. It takes our team sort of going down or drilling down into sort of those differentiators. But there's always a way to position it both through copy, taglines, and strong elements, and then through great design. So you want to have writers and graphic designers who work in the industry, who understand the industry, to extrapolate on those key differentiators, and then we build out from there. And that's how you could avoid the sea of sameness, is positioning whatever the product is or whatever the service is against what's out there, but building off exactly what the person who is usually you'll have a portfolio manager, and they will have a specific investment style. They'll have they'll focus on parts of a specific sector, geographic region, individual holdings. What is compelling them to do what they do, to make the investment decisions they make? And it's super important to build on those differentiators, because it will be different from hopefully all of their competitors.
So as part of it, it's probably more of a tactic than anything else, but public relations, getting the story out into the press, getting third-party credibility. Where does marketing stop and PR start when dealing with clients, or is it all just, is that something you're thinking about strategically as part of the overall attack?
Well, they're generally two different functions. So you'll have a PR agency. We have a bit of a PR component to our business, but there's real good PR specialists out there. And you want to work those two in conjunction, because there's a big value in getting that message out and highlighting those core differentiators through a public relations effort. But the marketing will be more of the core pieces. It's almost like inbound, outbound, where the marketing will be outbound, and you'll create all these assets after doing the high level strategy. You'll create all these assets to help support the messaging and to help people sell it. So you'll do presentations, you'll do videos, you'll do social, you'll do all of these other components of a full serve marketing strategy. Whereas PR will be more, you want to get the story out. You want those key differentiators from the subject matter expert, the portfolio manager, or whoever it is, sort of that's going to be sort of the closest person to the fund, or whatever mandate it is, whatever investment opportunity it is, going out there. But again, sometimes it's hard in the PR world. It's a little bit harder because you need to have a real story. On the marketing side, to maybe a bit lesser extent. Whereas reporters, if you're trying to get some space, in earned media, it can be very difficult, because they'll have people coming to them all the time trying to sell them. So you really have to know your story well. And that's where you can leverage some of what we've done on the sort of more core marketing side.
Nice. So from a measurement standpoint, always a tricky part with marketing. What does success look like from your standpoint, and can that differ sometimes from clients? I can, from my vantage point, I know that certain clients, myself included, I sort of look at, eyeballs this or engagements that, and I go, all right, well, revenue this, AUM that's kind of what's interesting. How do you, part of it, I guess, is managing expectations, which is understanding exactly, building brand and engagement and visibility, and then ultimately turning that into sales and dollars.
Look, when I first, I'm 118 years old. So when I first started, maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but when I first started in marketing, getting KPIs, getting real strong metrics as to what your marketing efforts were driving, it was only basically revenue and AUM. There was very little that you could measure against. We had all these calculations, but it was certainly nowhere near as sophisticated as it is today, getting measurable results really accurately. We a couple of years ago launched a digital marketing agency. So, when we're doing a capital raise, or when we're helping market a client's product through ad buys and those types of things, you could see exactly what type of engagement you're getting from ads. So once you use those measurements, you do some A/B testing where you measure one message versus another on one platform versus another. You could really see what people are engaging with, what they're interacting with, what they're responding to, and get you could start through a lead generation funnel, can start getting contact information. You could start stuff that we would never have been able to get prior, and then it would be outbound from an advisor going, okay, I sent you a letter, I sent you a newsletter. Are you interested in discussing this new product further? This really drives some good inbound. Again, you want a mix of inbound, but you also have to have, and not to make it sound too confusing, but outbound as well, where advisors or wholesalers can be going out and telling the story better. But there's a familiarity. You have a bunch of different touch points on it, a bunch of different platforms, and you have different messages that help solidify the whole story of the mandate.
So then some success stories around that. What's worked? Have you got any examples where someone came to you and, I hate to put it this way, they were helpless. Maybe they were good at managing assets, but getting the story out there and then turning that into a good marketing campaign. Any thoughts on that front?
We're doing a digital campaign where we built all the assets, helped the company. It was a smaller real estate, so private credit type of offering, and they were looking to do a capital raise for some for some different investing opportunities. And we helped them tell a story. We built a bunch of ads that we were able to plant on products like websites and such and social media, where we help them build an incredible story. We help them build assets that get out there and create awareness and interest. And they did a bunch of great webinars where we were able to advertise for those webinars, and we had massive numbers that they'd never seen before. And they've almost hit their investment target. So we do see, with the right story, with the right, I call them assets, but they could be ads, they could be videos, whatever it is, and then other types of ways to engage with potential clients or investors. And yes, if you have the right channels, if you have the right types of ads or content, thought leadership type pieces, you can really create a great engagement and reach any of your goals. But again, I would never make a promise, because I don't want to run afoul of any of the regulators while I'm on the Wealth Actually podcast today.
Do you help clients segment? I know that there's a lot of conventional wisdom that the best way to get the story out is to really focus intensely on whom you want to tell it to. And if you can make that smaller and smaller, you can make better decisions around the resources you allocate toward that. And is there a difference between sort of segmenting and then amongst a sort of a buying audience and marketing to, say, directly to the consumer versus the influencer or the referrer, or from a business to a business?
Yes. Early on, we did a ton of COI type programs, referral type programs. And these days, admittedly, we're mostly B2B. B2C, we have some of it, but it's not the largest segment of our client base. But certainly, I would say that the most important thing is to build a strong brand, a strong message, a strong visual identity. These are the types of things that shouldn't vary too much between those different audiences. But then how you tell that story to those different audiences, the value proposition, I mean, to centers of influence, COIs, or your referral base, will be quite different than to a retail investor. And as well, if you're a fund manufacturer, to the dealerships, the IAs, or your centers of influence. We used to talk a lot about the sophistication of the different audiences. Investors knew this much. They weren't very sophisticated unless they were ultra high net worth or accredited investors. And then you have advisors who had this level of knowledge. And then the walls came down, and different types of private investments, private equity, private credit, those types of things, alternative assets came out, and all these different types of products were launched over the past sort of decade and a bit. And I find that a lot of the time advisors really want to learn more about that product too. It used to just be, okay, the advisors have this base level of knowledge, and then we just have to give them the language to sell it to investors. Oftentimes I find these days, these products, could be so sophisticated that it's worth drilling down for an advisor channel too, and then giving them some good language. So it's almost like you can use very similar materials between those two audiences, because advisors will be telling the story next, and they're going to need that type of language. They're going to need that type of understanding of the product. So you want to give them that base level knowledge as well, regardless. You don't want to lead to any assumptions about the retail investors and their level of sophistication, or the advisors and their level of sophistication, and as well with their centers of influence.
The function of marketing, have you ever had some tough love conversations with these firms who think they can internalize parts of it? I mean, you do lots of different things with a full service marketing agency, and then there are going to be financial institutions, small and large, who think they can do some of it themselves, or they've got a system set up that's maybe not efficient, or creates a bubble in advice from a marketing perspective. How do you intersect with that?
We're pretty lucky because our clients come to us from very different places. Some of them earlier stage hedge funds may have no marketing infrastructure. So they basically hand it off to us and say, from start to finish, we want brand, logo, messaging, all of these core materials. And then we want a full strategy to get onto the street to help advisors sell our products, to tell people about our products, those types of things. And some of our larger fund manufacturers, they could have multiple marketing areas. They're not just one. They'll have a full studio, they'll have a full comms team, they'll have a full strategy team, they'll have a full PR component. So we get we get clients coming to us from different sort of places in their evolution, earlier stage to fully established. And we're lucky in that we've been positioned to be able to help them regardless. For the more clients that are bigger and sort of further on in their evolution, they may come to us and say, we need a video. Just do a video for us. We don't want you don't think about branding this product. We've already done all that work. We've already created the strategy, most of the core materials. Just do a video or a microsite, or our sales team give them a presentation to go out to advisors with. And then you get the smaller hedge funds or emerging managers who go, I need a logo, I need a name, and why am I spending this money on marketing anyways when it's all about the product or the story? I always say we're the distant third leg of the stool. You have product, the portfolio managers who are often the founders of these hedge funds, and then you have sales, and they're bringing in all the money, and they go out and tell the story. And then marketing is sort of the support group, and maybe not the best investment, but it is the best investment, because once you build a brand and people recognize the brand and they understand what you're doing and they really understand your value proposition, that's when they'll stay invested in your fund for the long haul. Like, they're not going to leave after a bad quarter. They will understand what you're really trying to do and what you're really trying to accomplish, and may be willing to give you a little bit of leeway through a quarter or a couple of bad months, and say, I know what this individual is going to do to help me get good returns, what I'm expecting over the long haul.
You referenced digital and those types of campaigns, and I'm old enough to remember everything from mail to picking up the phone to all sorts of things in order to get to people. But I think there's a real hunger out there, and then maybe people see a shortcut between A and Z in getting from product and message directly to the customer or the consumer or the client, depending on which C you want to call it. What's the trend there? I mean, it seems to me everyone is looking for that digital ways to leverage content and moving on to getting to a broader base of people with limited damage to one's pocketbook or effort. How do you see that in the practice?
We talk a lot about being environmentally conscious, where it's reuse, recycle, everybody has some original thoughts, and probably enough to create something of a white paper where you would go out and you would talk about what you're seeing, what you're expecting, what you're trying to accomplish, all of those types of things from a thought leadership standpoint. And those types of pieces are great. And then you can extrapolate from them. There's always very good ideas that you can pull out from anything you've ever written, anything you've read, and leverage it on social media. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I will always see, I love seeing, reading, commenting, liking other people's content, especially when it's teaching me something, it's of value to me. And everybody out there has something to say, as long as you say it in a way that's educational, that's not super salesy. I think that there's a lot of great ways to leverage social media, and that's a digital channel. And, PR is sort of earned, where you go out, you could have a big story, you can have a press release, all of those types of things you can leverage. If you have a PR agency helping you, they often will have people in the media who they can, get to interview you, get you to talk to, sort of elevate that message. And that's the earn. And then there's the paid, which is you go out and you pay to be on different websites as a banner ad or a video or some type of engagement with those types of audiences. And what we tend to do is create what's called lead magnets. So if you have an ad and you say, like, check out what we see as the future of investing in the Far East, in emerging markets, or something like that. And then you have a thought leadership, or you have a video, or you have something, it's going to bring them to sign up for a webinar or somewhere where you're telling the story. It's a great way to engage a potential, audience of clients for an advisor, advisors for a fund manufacturer, or your centers of influence. And when we're talking about centers of influence, it's always nice to include your centers. If you really want to build very good, stronger relationships with your centers of influence, it's really helpful to bring them on your webinars or any of like these types of podcasts or conversations where they can be out there telling your story too, because it's a synergistic relationship where they're benefiting, they're elevating their profile, they're sharing from their knowledge, and you could do the same with them. And that's, to me, that's building the strongest possible centers of influence and partnerships out there.
I think a lot of people sort of think that digital solves all marketing issues, but at the same time, traditional media, even things like hosting events and getting in front of people on a handshake type basis, or on a dinner type basis, or those types of scenarios, those haven't completely evaporated. But where do you see them in the context of broader initiatives for different groups?
I always look at the world these days as pre-COVID and post-COVID. I mean, prior to COVID, hand-to-hand combat was the way people sold. You had to be in front of people. You had to be at their dinner tables. You had to be shaking their hands, or in their offices, or having them come into your office. That's the way business was done. With things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and those types of products, where you can have meaningful conversations on a computer screen, I think that that's where the world has evolved to. But I would say that people still need to be human to one another. They still need to look you in the eye, shake your hand. For advisors, I think it's still critical to have those types of in-person, whether it's those coffee and cookie type events, or drinks, or dinners, or lunches, whatever, meeting in people's offices. I think it's still super valuable. I think presentations in person are still super valuable. And I think that both have a place in this world. And as long as you're giving people an option, I think it's really what you think your client base wants, or your prospects want. If they say, no, please, let's just set up a call, respect that wish, because you have a better shot of building a good relationship. And where people are like, why don't you come into my office? And me personally, I have people, it's probably 70-30. People are still very comfortable speaking to me on Teams or Zoom. And then 30% go, Rich, why don't you come into my office? Let's have a quick meeting. And I love both are great. As long as I'm having conversations, I think it's all valuable.
And very much a symphony of measures. You have to kind of be able to meet the client or the expert at the place where they're comfortable, or you're already sort of starting behind the eight ball, I think. But To that end, we talked a little bit about getting the message out from a public relations standpoint and otherwise. Third-party credibility, which I guess could come in the form of being quoted in the New York Times. It could be speaking at a high-end conference. It could be being on CNBC or something like that. Where does that fit in? I guess that's part of the earned media component that we talked about before. It's not really a percentage question or, what proportion of your time should you spend getting to that, but how important do you think that is generally? Or is that something that you can get around and that can be a conscious strategic decision too?
I think that it's worth still pursuing third-party credibility. It's similar to the benefits of having centers of influence. When somebody refers you, whether it's an accountant, a lawyer, a reporter is talking, maybe not giving you the kudos that your accountant or lawyer or other centers of influence might. I still think there's a massive value to it. I think that there's no question in my mind that we always say back to the digital marketing story that you need 7 touch points. People who've never heard of you, they need to see an ad, then see another story, then hear your name through a couple of different channels. It starts to be ingrained in their consciousness that, oh, this is a company that I can work with. This is a company that's so big that I'm seeing them all over the place. So we never look at it as like when we're doing digital marketing, one ad, that's it. That's all we need. If they engage, great. If they don't, they're lost. You have to keep being in front of their eyeballs, and the digital realm is so rife with these opportunities to sort of go, okay, this advisor goes to this golf site and goes to this travel site and goes to this fashion site, right? We can get in front of their eyeballs on all 3 of those sites through different means, cookies, and that type of stuff. They know exactly where people are going, so they find us, and we are susceptible to that. And that's great for when you're trying to build familiarity and credibility. And to me, that is the same as third-party credibility. If you're in articles, the one thing I recommend is always use those articles across channels. So if you're in the New York Times, quoted a story about you, a story about your product, leverage it all over the place. Wherever your potential clients or prospects might be, you're sharing that story. You're talking about that experience. You're building on what you've already shared. Again, reuse it and keep going and going and going, because you don't have to keep coming up with new ideas. You just have to keep sharing those ideas in different manners on different platforms.
As we wind up here, Richard, any particular trends that you see on the horizon that might be interesting for people who are listening?
In this industry, there's always regulatory change that we all need to be aware of. We're super aware of the types of reporting our clients have to do, the types of information they have to provide to their whether it's advisors or investors. Certainly, we're all keeping an eye on artificial intelligence, how it's impacting the products we sell, how it's impacting how we're telling those stories. We're already starting to leverage some of those tools ourselves and our team just to make sure that we're on top of it. But again, nothing in the foreseeable future, in my mind, is going to replace the human element. There's always going to have to be human oversight. Again, not to sound like a dinosaur, but that's sort of how I see things going for the foreseeable future.
Great stuff. Richard, how do listeners and watchers, we're on video now too, how do we find you?
Please go to EXT-Marketing.com. That's our URL, or contact me at Heft, RHEFT at EXT-Marketing.com. Happy to speak and happy to tell you more about about why marketing matters.
Terrific. Richard, thank you for being on.
Thanks, Fraser. Good talking to you.